The view from Concordia Station was something Brandon Hayes never thought he'd see in his lifetime. Through the massive observation windows, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the infinite darkness of space. But it wasn't the view of home that made his hands shake with excitement. It was what was happening inside this massive alien structure. "Ambassador Hayes, they're ready for you," his assistant whispered. Brandon straightened his tie and walked into the council chamber. 47 different alien species filled the room. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. The VRWNN resembled giant mantises, their multiple eyes reflecting light in weird patterns. The Korthax were massive reptilian creatures with scales that seemed to shift colors. The Thessians floated in containment suits filled with water, their tentacles moving in graceful patterns. This was humanity's big moment. After 200 years of reaching out into space, after decades of radio signals sent into the void, the galaxy had finally answered back. And they didn't just say hello, they invited humans to join the Galactic Federation. "Ambassador Hayes," the VRWNN Chancellor clicked through his translator device. "On behalf of the Federation, we welcome humanity. Your species has shown remarkable progress. We believe you will make excellent additions to our alliance." Brandon shook the alien's claw, feeling the cool chitin against his palm. He'd practiced this moment 1,000 times, but nothing prepared him for how surreal it felt. "Thank you, Chancellor. Humanity is honored to join the Federation. We look forward to learning from our new friends and sharing what we can offer." The treaty signing took 3 hours. Document after document, each one promising cooperation, shared technology and mutual defense. Brandon signed them all, knowing that back on Earth, billions of people were watching this moment live. Kids were probably skipping school. Adults were gathering in public squares. This was bigger than the moon landing. This was humanity's graduation into the cosmic community. Within weeks, the gifts started arriving. The VRWNN sent medical technology that could cure diseases humanity had fought for centuries. Cancer became treatable with a simple injection. Alzheimer's could be reversed. Brandon watched his own father, who'd been sick for years, walk without assistance for the first time in a decade. The Thessians shared their quantum drive technology. Suddenly, trips that would take decades with human ships could be completed in days. Captain Melissa Rodriguez was chosen to lead the first colony mission to Kepler 442b, a planet the Federation had already confirmed was perfect for human life. "This is insane," Melissa told her crew as they prepared for departure. "My great-grandparents dreamed of Mars. We're going 40 light-years away and it'll take us less than a month." The Korthax seemed especially interested in helping humanity expand. They provided terraforming equipment, resource maps of nearby systems, and even military escorts for the colony ships. "We protect our allies," the Korthax general told Brandon during a diplomatic dinner. His name was something unpronounceable, so everyone just called him General Vex. "The galaxy can be dangerous. You're new here. We'll make sure nothing happens to your people." Brandon raised his glass in thanks, though something about Vex's cold reptilian eyes made him uncomfortable. But he pushed the feeling aside. These were humanity's allies now. Trust had to start somewhere. On Earth, things were changing fast. A young engineer named Tyler Washington was working with Thessian scientists to improve their quantum cores. Tyler had always been good with machines, but working with alien technology was like being a kid in the world's most amazing playground. "You humans think differently than we do," one of his Thessian partners bubbled through their translator. "Your approach to problem-solving is unusual. Chaotic but effective." Tyler managed to increase the quantum core efficiency by 30%. The Thessians were thrilled. They invited him to their homeworld to share his techniques with their top scientists. Tyler felt like he was living in a dream. Just 2 years ago he was fixing cars in Detroit. Now he was helping advance alien technology. Human colonies spread quickly. Within 5 years, 12 systems had human settlements. Trade routes opened up. Human art, music, and culture spread through Federation space. Alien tourists visited Earth. Human tourists visited alien worlds. Brandon's daughter, Sophie, started attending a mixed-species school on Concordia Station. She came home talking about her Scree friend who could fly, her Myconid friend who could communicate through spores, and her Lumen friend who could change colors. "Dad, isn't this amazing?" Sophie asked one night over dinner. "100 years ago we thought we were alone. Now I have friends from 12 different planets." Brandon smiled, but that nagging feeling never quite left him. Especially when he attended Federation Council meetings. The elder species, the Korthax, VRWNN, and Thessians, often met privately before full sessions. When Brandon asked to attend, they politely declined. "Old business," Vex explained. Nothing relevant to humanity. You're still new. Give it time. Meanwhile, Melissa Rodriguez was settling into life on Kepler 442b. The colony had grown to 12,000 people. They'd built cities, farms, research facilities. Children were being born who would never see Earth. It felt like humanity's future was finally secure. That's when everything changed. Melissa was having breakfast with her command staff when the alarms started blaring. Her tactical officer, a former Navy lieutenant named Rick Cooper, pulled up the scanner displays. "Captain, we've got multiple contacts dropping out of quantum space. Unknown configuration." "Hail them," Melissa ordered, but she was already feeling that same uncomfortable sensation Brandon had felt around General Vex. The response came 30 seconds later, but it wasn't a greeting. It was weapons fire. Plasma bolts tore through their orbital defense platforms. The shields flickered and died. Missiles streaked toward the colony's main habitat domes. "Return fire." Melissa screamed, but their weapons barely scratched the attackers' shields. Rick was frantically analyzing the enemy signatures. When his face went pale, Melissa knew it was bad. "Captain, these weapons. I recognize them. They're VRNN plasma cannons. And those missiles, those are Thesian quantum warheads. This is Federation technology." Melissa felt her world collapse. The allies humanity had trusted, the friends they'd celebrated with, were attacking their colony. "Send a distress signal to Earth. Tell them." The communication array exploded before she could finish. The last thing Melissa saw was her daughter's picture on her desk before the ceiling came down. Back on Concordia Station, Brandon was in his quarters when the emergency channel lit up. The message was broken, barely intelligible through the static. "Under attack. Federation weapons. Need help, please." Then silence. Brandon tried every communication channel he had. Nothing. It was like humanity had been cut off from the entire galaxy in an instant. He ran to the council chamber, but the doors were sealed. When he finally forced his way in, he found the chamber empty except for General Vex. The Korthax turned slowly, and this time there was no pretense of friendship in those cold eyes. "Ambassador Hayes, we need to talk about humanity's future. Or rather, the lack of one." Captain Melissa Rodriguez opened her eyes to darkness and pain. Her head was bleeding and she could taste copper in her mouth. Around her, emergency lights flickered red, casting the command center in an eerie glow. The ceiling had partially collapsed and she could hear screaming in the distance. "Rick," she called out, coughing through the smoke. "Anyone alive?" A groan came from her left. Rick Cooper crawled out from under a fallen beam, his uniform torn and bloody. "I'm here, Captain. But we've got a serious problem." Melissa pulled herself to her feet and looked at the tactical display. What she saw made her stomach drop. The colony's 3 main habitat domes were breached. Fires were spreading through the agricultural sector. And on the ground she could see drop ships landing, dozens of them. "How many people made it to the shelters?" she asked. Rick checked his datapad with shaking hands. "Maybe 4,000. The rest." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Melissa activated the emergency broadcast system. "All survivors, this is Captain Rodriguez. Get underground. Use the mining tunnels. Don't try to fight, just run and hide." Through the shattered windows of the command center, she watched as VRNN soldiers emerged from their drop ships. They moved with mechanical efficiency, scanning for life signs and eliminating any movement. These weren't the friendly aliens who'd shared medical technology. These were killers. "Why?" Rick whispered. "We trusted them. We were allies." Melissa didn't have an answer. She grabbed what weapons she could find, a plasma rifle one of the Korthax advisors had left behind, ironically enough, and headed for the tunnels. Meanwhile, aboard Concordia Station, Brandon Hayes stood face to face with General Vex. The Korthax's scales rippled with what might have been satisfaction. "You can't be serious," Brandon said, his voice barely steady. "You're attacking our colonies? We had a treaty. We were allies." Vex tilted his massive head. "We were never allies, Ambassador. We were simply delaying the inevitable. The Council took a vote 3 months ago. It was unanimous among the elder species. Humanity must be eliminated." "But why? What did we do? What did you do?" Vex's laugh was a harsh clicking sound. "Look at yourselves. In 5 years you've spread across 12 systems. Your population grows exponentially. Your military tactics are unpredictable. Your technology advances faster than any species we've recorded. You're creative, adaptable, and aggressive. Do you know what that makes you?" "What?" "A threat." Perhaps not today. Perhaps not in 10 years. But in 50 years? 100? The Council analyzed your history. You're a species that evolved as apex predators on a death world. You've fought wars among yourselves for thousands of years. You've mastered violence in ways civilized species never needed to. We can't allow you to realize your full potential. Brandon felt cold spreading through his chest. So you invited us in just to wipe us out? It was easier this way. We learned your weaknesses, installed backdoors in the technology we gave you, mapped all your colonies. Right now, as we speak, Federation fleets are hitting every human settlement simultaneously. Your orbital defenses are shutting down remotely. Your communications are being jammed. In 72 hours, humanity will be extinct. Brandon lunged at Vex, but the Korthax was faster. A massive claw caught him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. You were supposed to be different, Brandon gasped. You were supposed to be better than us. We are better, Vex hissed. We're survivors. And we eliminate threats before they eliminate us. He threw Brandon across the room. When the ambassador struggled to his feet, he found the chamber doors had sealed behind him. Emergency lockdown. He was trapped. But Brandon Hayes hadn't become Earth's chief diplomat by being helpless. He activated the hidden communicator implanted in his tooth, old Earth technology the aliens didn't know about. This is Brandon Hayes to any human vessels in range. The Federation has betrayed us. All colonies are under attack. Earth is next. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a... The signal cut out as Vex crushed the transmitter hidden in Brandon's jacket pocket. Too late, the Korthax said. Earth's orbital defenses are already down. He was right. Admiral Derek Patterson stood in the command center of Earth's primary defense station, watching 300 Federation warships drop out of quantum space. The massive battle fleet surrounded Earth like a noose. Admiral, defensive grid is offline, his tactical officer shouted. All platforms are dead. We're getting error messages across the board. Derek had been a Navy man for 30 years. He'd prepared for alien invasions, asteroid impacts, even rogue AIs. But he'd never imagined humanity's own allies would be the threat. Sir, they're hailing us, his communications officer said. A VRYN appeared on screen. Admiral Patterson. Surrender Earth immediately. We will make the process quick. Resistance will only cause unnecessary suffering. Derek looked at the young men and women on his bridge. Fresh faces, full of hope just yesterday. Now they stared at him waiting for orders that could save them or doom them. Tell them to go to hell, Derek said quietly. The VRNN's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. As you wish. The bombardment began. But Derek had one trick the aliens didn't expect. When the Federation installed backdoors in Earth systems, human engineers had been watching. A brilliant programmer named Jordan Lee had noticed strange code patterns and quietly built a workaround. Jordan. Derek shouted across the command center. Tell me you can get those platforms back online. Jordan's fingers flew across the keyboard. Working on it. These backdoors are sophisticated, but whoever wrote them got cocky. They left patterns. Give me 3 minutes. We don't have 3 minutes. Then give me 2. On the planet's surface, Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Mitchell received the alert on his tactical display. The sky was lighting up with explosions as Federation ships began their attack. But Aaron had been preparing for this moment ever since he'd met General Vex and seen something dark behind those alien eyes. Activate Protocol 0, he ordered his team. Protocol 0. The code humanity had created but hoped never to use. Every major city had underground networks. Hidden weapons caches. Evacuation routes through subway systems and sewers. Guerrilla warfare plans developed by studying every resistance movement in human history. The Federation thought humanity's strength was their technology. They were about to learn humans had survived on Earth long before they had spaceships. In Los Angeles, VRNN dropships landed expecting to find panicked civilians. Instead, the streets were empty. Buildings stood silent. It looked like a ghost town. The VRNN commander ordered his troops forward. They'd barely made it 2 blocks when the first explosion hit. Sergeant Kelly Barnes watched through binoculars from a parking garage rooftop as the alien patrol scattered. She'd been a police officer before joining Earth Defense. Now she was something else entirely. Detonate charges 6 through 12, she said into her radio. The street erupted in a chain reaction of explosions. VRYNN soldiers who survived the first blast ran directly into the second. Those who made it through both found themselves in a crossfire from 20 different positions. Kelly's team had turned the city into a maze of death. They knew every building, every alley, every sewer entrance. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had home field advantage. Back on Kepler 442b, Melissa reached the tunnels with 37 survivors. They huddled in the darkness, listening to the sounds of their colony being destroyed above them. "Captain, we got a message out before the array was destroyed," Rick said, checking his equipment. "At least Earth knows what's happening." "Earth's probably under attack too," Melissa replied. She looked at the frightened faces around her. Miners, scientists, teachers, kids. They'd come here to build a new world. Instead, they'd walked into a trap. One of the children, a girl named Amy who couldn't be more than 8, tugged on Melissa's sleeve. "Are the aliens going to kill us?" Melissa wanted to lie to comfort her. But she'd always believed in honesty. "They're going to try. But we're not going to make it easy for them." She turned to Rick. "We've got mining equipment down here, right? Plasma cutters, explosives, drilling charges?" Rick's eyes lit up with understanding. "Yeah. Lots of it." "Then let's teach these aliens what humans do when you back us into a corner." Above them, the VRNN were celebrating what they thought was an easy victory. Below, in the darkness, humanity was getting ready to fight back. And in space, Jordan Lee finally cracked the Federation's backdoor code. Earth's defensive platforms roared back to life, shields flickering on just as a Thetan missile barrage arrived. Admiral Derek Patterson smiled grimly. "All batteries, open fire. Let's show them what humans are made of." The war had begun. And the galaxy was about to learn a terrible truth. Humanity didn't start this fight. But they were damn sure going to finish it. 3 months into the war, Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Mitchell stood in what used to be downtown Houston. The city was unrecognizable. Skyscrapers had become hollow shells. Streets were cratered and burned. But humans were still here, still fighting, and the VRNN were learning to fear the darkness. Aaron had 200 fighters left from an original force of 800. They weren't soldiers anymore, not really. They were something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. His team included a former dentist, 3 high school teachers, a chef, and a grandmother who'd celebrated her 70th birthday in a bomb shelter. "Sir, VRNN patrol incoming," whispered Janet Reed, the grandmother. She'd been a librarian before the war. Now she was the best scout Aaron had ever worked with. Aaron checked his makeshift weapon, a VRNN plasma rifle held together with duct tape and wire. "How many?" 20 soldiers. 2 armored vehicles. They're using the same route they used yesterday." Aaron smiled. The VRNN were technologically superior, but they were predictable. They thought like a hive, following patterns and protocols. Humans thought like hunters. And hunters learned their prey's habits. "Set the trap. Same as before, but move position 3 blocks east. They'll expect us in the same spot." His team moved through the ruins like ghosts. They knew every collapsed building, every functioning sewer tunnel, every place where rubble created perfect hiding spots. This was their city. The VRNN were just visitors who'd overstayed their welcome. The trap worked perfectly. The VRNN patrol walked straight into an intersection Aaron's team had rigged with explosives. The armored vehicles went up in flames. Soldiers scattered, looking for cover that wasn't there. Human fighters opened fire from 12 different positions. It was over in 90 seconds. No human casualties. 22 dead VRNN. "Move out before their reinforcements arrive," Aaron ordered. His team vanished into the sewers, already planning the next ambush. But Houston was just one city. The real war was spreading across the solar system and beyond. Captain Wesley Grant commanded what he called the Ghost Fleet, 30 ships cobbled together from civilian freighters, mining vessels, and pre-Federation military hardware. None of them were pretty. Most shouldn't have been space-worthy. But they worked, and more importantly, they were invisible to Federation scanners because they used old Earth technology. Wesley studied the holographic display showing a Corthax mining operation in the Sirius system. 40 mining ships, 3 escort frigates, and thousands of civilian workers extracting rare metals the Corthax needed for their war machine. "Sir, there are families on those mining platforms," his first officer said. Lieutenant Amber Chin had been a cargo pilot before the war. Now she helped plan attacks that would have been considered war crimes 6 months ago. "The Corthax voted to exterminate every human," Wesley replied, his voice cold. "Every single one. Men, women, children. They don't get to cry about civilian casualties now." The Ghost Fleet hit the mining operation without warning. Wesley's ships weren't built for combat, but they didn't need to be. They rammed the escort frigates at full speed, sacrificing themselves to create chaos. The remaining ships targeted the mining platform's life support systems. Wesley watched from his bridge as the platforms vented atmosphere. He forced himself to watch to see what he'd become. Thousands of Korthax civilians dying in the cold vacuum of space. He wanted to feel something, guilt, horror, anything. But all he felt was satisfaction. That's 12 mining operations destroyed, Amber reported. The Korthax economy is hemorrhaging. Their military is running short on materials. Good, Wesley said. Hit the next target tomorrow. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Warren was waging a different kind of war. Before the Federation's betrayal, she'd been a biologist studying alien life forms. The VRNN had even invited her to their homeworld to share research. Now she used that knowledge to kill them. The VRNN queens are the key, Lisa explained to Brandon Hayes during a secured video call. Brandon had escaped Concordia Station and was coordinating resistance efforts from a hidden base in the asteroid belt. Their entire species depends on queens who live for centuries, Lisa continued. Worker VRNN can't make complex decisions without queen pheromones. Kill a queen, and the whole hive collapses into chaos. Can you target just the queens? Brandon asked. Lisa held up a vial of silver liquid. This is a virus I engineered. It's airborne, spreads fast, and it's lethal only to the VRNN royal caste. Their biology is different enough from worker VRNN that it won't affect them. But without queens. She didn't finish. They both knew what it meant. Lisa had created a weapon that would essentially lobotomize an entire species. Do it, Brandon said after a long pause. Agent Troy Mason led the team that delivered Lisa's virus to a VRNN hive world. They disguised themselves as prisoners, desperate humans begging for mercy. The VRNN, arrogant in their superiority, allowed them to land for processing. Troy and his team released the virus in the ventilation system of the primary hive complex. They escaped before anyone noticed. 3 weeks later, 7 VRNN queens died from respiratory failure. Their hives descended into absolute chaos as worker drones fought each other for dominance. But humanity's darkest moment came when Commander Nina Price received her orders. She was aboard the carrier Retribution, holding position near the Theshan Cultural Center on Aquatis Prime. Commander, are you sure about this? Her weapons officer asked. That's a civilian target. Museums, temples, historical archives. There's no military value. Nina looked at the planet below. Aquatis Prime was beautiful, an ocean world with floating cities that were considered artistic masterpieces. The Theshans had preserved 3,000 years of their cultural history there. The Theshans burned our colonies without hesitation, Nina said. They killed our civilians. Our children. This isn't about military value. This is about making them hurt the way we hurt. She gave the order. The orbital bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it was done, Aquatis Prime was a crater. An entire species' cultural identity erased. Nina threw up in her private quarters afterward. But she didn't regret it. Back on Earth, a young hacker named Kevin Park was fighting his own war from a computer terminal. Before the invasion, he'd been serving time for breaking into corporate databases. Now the government had given him full access to military systems and one mission: make the aliens' lives hell. Kevin had discovered something beautiful. The Korthax relied on AI systems to coordinate their fleet movements. Complex algorithms that calculated optimal jump points, supply routes, and tactical formations. Kevin spent 2 months studying those systems. Then he introduced a virus that was almost invisible. It didn't shut anything down. It just changed numbers. Tiny alterations. A decimal point moved here. A coordinate shifted there. The results were catastrophic. Korthax ships started jumping to wrong locations. Supply convoys arrived at empty coordinates. Weapons systems targeted friendly vessels due to identification errors. The Korthax military descended into chaos, and they couldn't figure out why. It's beautiful, Kevin told his supervisor. They keep checking for major hacks, but they can't see the small changes. By the time they figure it out, their entire logistics network will be useless. But not every human was comfortable with what they'd become. Sergeant Daniel Wright sat in a makeshift bar in one of Earth's underground bunkers, drinking recycled alcohol and trying to forget what he'd done that day. He'd been part of a raid on a VRNN field hospital. They'd killed wounded soldiers who couldn't fight back. When a VRNN medic had begged for mercy, Daniel had shot them anyway. We're monsters now, he said to the bartender, a former accountant named Phil. Phil poured him another drink. Maybe. But we're alive. The VRYNN and Korthax wanted to wipe us out completely. Every man, woman, and child. At least we're giving them a chance to surrender. Are we though? Every report I hear is about another civilian target hit, another biological weapon released, another war crime. When did we become the bad guys? Phil was quiet for a moment. I don't think we're the bad guys. I think we're survivors. And survival isn't pretty. Ambassador Brandon Hayes wrestled with the same questions. He'd authorized Lisa's virus. He'd approved Wesley's raids on mining operations. He'd signed off on Nina's bombardment of Aquatiz Prime. Late at night, alone in his quarters, he wondered if humanity would ever recover from what they'd become. But then he'd remember Kepler, 442b. 12,000 colonists dead. He'd remember Earth's cities burning. He'd remember General Vex's cold eyes as he explained that humanity's extinction was simply strategic necessity. And Brandon would steel himself for the next day's orders. The galaxy had wanted to test humanity. They'd pushed them into a corner and expected them to die quietly. Instead, they'd awakened something primal in humans. Something that had helped them survive on Earth for millions of years. They'd awakened humanity's true nature. Not as peaceful explorers or friendly diplomats, but as Earth's apex predators who would do absolutely anything to survive. And the galaxy was learning to fear them. 2 years into the war, the Galactic Federation was no longer the mighty alliance it once was. Captain Wesley Grant stood on the bridge of his flagship Predator, a massive dreadnought built from salvaged alien parts and human ingenuity, studying reports from across Federation space. "They're retreating," Lieutenant Amberchin said, analyzing the data streams. "The Korthax are pulling their forces back to their core worlds. The VRNN have abandoned 6 colony systems. The Thessians are rationing water for the first time in their recorded history." Wesley allowed himself a grim smile. "They're not retreating. They're running scared." Good. But Wesley wasn't interested in just winning anymore. He wanted the aliens to understand what they'd done. He wanted them to feel the terror that human colonists felt when their homes burned. He wanted them to know what it meant to be prey. "Set course for the Korthax agricultural world in the Deneb system," Wesley ordered. "It's time we taught them about starvation." The Korthax depended on 7 major farming planets to feed their population. Wesley had already destroyed 3. Deneb 4 was next. His fleet dropped out of quantum space above the planet, a beautiful world covered in vast purple fields of grain-like crops. "Sir, there are minimal defenses here," Amber reported. "Just 2 patrol ships and a ground garrison. This is purely a civilian agricultural operation." "I know," Wesley said. "Target the water processing facilities. I want every irrigation system contaminated. Release the bioagent Dr. Warren prepared." Wesley watched as the payload deployed. Lisa Warren had created something ingenious, a bacteria that specifically targeted Korthax crops. It wouldn't kill them immediately. Instead, it would make the plants produce toxins that caused chronic illness. The Korthax could eat the food, but they'd get sick. Over months, their population would suffer from malnutrition and disease. "Estimated casualties?" Wesley asked. "Hard to say, sir. Could be millions over the next year. Starvation, disease-related deaths, civil unrest when food supplies collapse." Wesley felt nothing. 2 years ago he would have been horrified. Now he just moved on to the next target. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Warren was working on something even more devastating in her laboratory hidden deep in the Australian outback. She'd already created the virus that killed VRNN queens. Now she was developing weapons for every Federation species. "The Thessians are fascinating," she told her assistant, a young biochemist named Ryan Foster. "Their entire biology depends on maintaining precise salinity levels in their bloodstream. Too much or too little salt and their cells rupture." "So you're creating a compound that disrupts their sodium balance?" Ryan asked. "Exactly. Airborne, fast-acting. Introduce it into one of their cities and within hours, thousands would die. It's painless actually. They just stop functioning." Ryan looked at the vial Lisa was holding. Inside was death for an entire species. "Doc, doesn't this bother you? What we're doing?" Lisa set down the vial carefully. "You know what bothers me? My sister lived on Kepler 442b. She had 2 kids, 6 and 9 years old. The VRNN killed them all. So no, creating weapons to kill VRNN doesn't bother me at all. But the war wasn't just about biology and bombs. Agent Troy Mason was fighting a psychological war that was breaking the Federation from within. Troy had infiltrated the Korthax communication networks months ago. Now he was using that access to spread chaos. He'd send fake military orders that contradicted each other. He'd alter casualty reports to make victories look like defeats. He'd plant evidence suggesting certain Korthax commanders were secretly working with humans. The paranoia was spreading like wildfire. Korthax officers arrested each other on suspicion of treason. Their military chain of command was fracturing. And Troy did it all from a small apartment in what remained of Tokyo. The beautiful thing about intelligent species, Troy told his handler during a check-in call, is that they're smart enough to imagine threats that don't exist. I just give them little pushes and their own minds do the rest. His latest operation was his masterpiece. Troy intercepted a Korthax supply convoy and let one ship escape, but not before his team modified its navigation system. The ship jumped to quantum speed heading for a safe harbor. Instead, it emerged right in the middle of a VRYNN battle fleet. The VRYNN, already paranoid after losing their queens to human bioweapons, immediately assumed it was an attack. They opened fire. The Korthax ship sent distress signals screaming that the VRYNN had betrayed them. Within hours, Korthax and VRYNN forces across 3 sectors were shooting at each other. Let them destroy themselves, Troy said, watching the chaos unfold on his monitors. We don't even need to fire a shot. Commander Nina Price was taking a different approach. After destroying Aquitas Prime, she'd been reassigned to special operations. Her new mission was infiltration and assassination. Nina led a team of 5 operatives who'd been surgically altered to pass as Korthax slaves. They infiltrated a major weapons manufacturing facility on Korthax Prime itself, the heart of enemy territory. Remember, Nina whispered to her team as they moved through the facility at night, we're not here to blow it up. That would be too quick. We're here to make sure everything they build from now on fails. Over 6 weeks, Nina's team introduced microscopic flaws into the manufacturing process. A decimal point changed in the metallurgy specifications. A tolerance adjusted in the weapon assembly algorithms. Changes so small they'd pass quality control but would cause catastrophic failures in the field. 3 months later, Korthax plasma rifles started exploding when fired. Their armor plating cracked under normal stress. Their ships developed structural failures. The Korthax military couldn't figure out why their equipment was suddenly unreliable, and they didn't dare use their existing stockpiles. Nina and her team escaped back to human space and she finally allowed herself to smile. She'd single-handedly crippled the Korthax war machine without killing a single soldier directly. But the most significant development came when Ambassador Brandon Hayes received an unexpected message. It was encrypted with codes that only 3 species in the Federation knew: the Scree, the Lumens, and the Myconids. Brandon opened the message in his secure facility. A hologram appeared, a Scree representative, her feathers ruffled in what Brandon had learned meant distress. Ambassador Hayes, I am speaking wind of the Scree Coalition. We voted against your extermination. The elder species silenced us, but we remember. We cannot stand by any longer. The Scree offer formal alliance with humanity. Brandon's heart raced. This changed everything. Why now? Why risk the Federation's wrath? Because the Federation is already falling apart. The Korthax and VRYNN are fighting each other. The Thessians are facing economic collapse. And frankly, we've seen what humans can do. We'd rather be your allies than your targets. Within a month, 3 species formally defected from the Federation. The Scree brought their fleets. The Lumens provided intelligence networks that spanned the galaxy. The Myconids offered their biological expertise. They could create vaccines for human soldiers, making them immune to most Federation bioweapons. Captain Wesley Grant met with the Scree Admiral in orbit above Mars. The bird-like alien studied Wesley with intelligent eyes. Your species fights like nothing we've ever seen, the Admiral said. You're brutal, creative, and absolutely relentless. The Federation fears you. Good, Wesley replied. They should fear us. They tried to wipe us out. Now we're returning the favor. But where does it end, Captain? When do you stop? Wesley was quiet for a long moment, staring at Earth below. The planet was scarred from 2 years of warfare, but humanity had survived. They'd done more than survive, they'd turned the tables completely. It ends when they surrender unconditionally, Wesley finally said. When every species in the Federation understands that humanity is not prey. We're predators. And we never forget. The Scree Admiral's feathers rippled in what might have been respect or fear. The galaxy will never be the same. No, Wesley agreed. It won't. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Mitchell walked through Houston's ruined streets with a young reporter who was documenting the war. The journalist, a woman named Rachel who'd survived 3 VRYNN attacks, asked the question everyone was thinking. Colonel, people are calling us monsters. They say we've committed atrocities. That we're no better than the aliens who tried to kill us. What do you say to that? Aaron stopped walking and looked at the city he'd fought for. Every building held memories of ambushes, of friends who died, of aliens who'd learned to fear human territory. I say we did what we had to do to survive, Aaron replied. The Federation wanted to exterminate us. Every man, woman, and child. They didn't want prisoners. They didn't want surrender. They wanted extinction. So yeah, we became monsters. Because sometimes the only way to fight monsters is to become something they fear even more. Rachel nodded slowly, and Aaron knew his words would spread across human space. Let them judge. Let them debate. He'd made his choices and he'd live with them. Because humanity was still alive. Still fighting. Still winning. And that was all that mattered. 3 years after the betrayal, Ambassador Brandon Hayes stood aboard the human flagship Vengeance, watching a Federation diplomatic convoy approach through the viewport. The irony wasn't lost on him. 3 years ago, he'd signed peace treaties with these same aliens aboard Concordia Station. Now they were coming to him begging for mercy. Sir, the Korthak's Supreme Commander is requesting permission to board, Lieutenant Amber Chin reported from the communications station. Brandon adjusted his uniform and straightened his shoulders. He'd lost weight during the war. They all had. But humanity had survived, and more than that, they'd won. Let them aboard. But keep weapons locked on their ship. I don't trust them. General Vex entered the conference room flanked by VRWNN and Theshan representatives. The same aliens who'd smiled and shaken Brandon's hand years ago. The same ones who'd voted unanimously to exterminate humanity. Vex looked different now. His scales were dull and his movements seemed slower. The war had aged him. Ambassador Hayes, Vex began, his voice lacking its former arrogance. We come to discuss terms of peace. Brandon leaned back in his chair and studied the alien who'd sentenced humanity to death. Peace? That's an interesting word coming from you. 3 years ago, you told me humanity's extinction was a strategic necessity. What changed? A VRWNN representative clicked nervously. The war has gone on too long. The Federation is fragmenting. Our economies are collapsing. Species are turning against each other. This benefits no one. It benefits humanity, Brandon said coldly. We're still alive. That's more than you planned for us. The Theshan representative, floating in their water suit, spoke through their translator. Ambassador, we made a grave mistake. We underestimated your species. We thought you would be easy to eliminate. We were wrong. Now we're asking for peace. Brandon stood and activated a holographic display. It showed Federation space, a map of devastation. Highlighted areas showed destroyed infrastructure, contaminated worlds, collapsed trade routes, and species on the brink of starvation. You see this? Brandon gestured to the map. This is what happens when you try to kill humanity. We didn't start this war. You brought this on yourselves. Vex's reptilian eyes met Brandon's. For the first time, Brandon saw something that might have been fear. What are your terms? My terms. Brandon laughed bitterly. You think you're in a position to negotiate? Let me tell you what's happening right now. Captain Wesley Grant has positioned quantum charges around 17 major Korthak's population centers. One word from me and billions of your people die in minutes. Vex's scales rippled with shock. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? You tried to exterminate my entire species. Every human child, every baby, every elderly person. You showed us no mercy. Why should we show you any? The room fell silent. The Federation representatives looked at each other with growing panic. Brandon let the moment stretch, let them imagine their worlds burning. Finally he spoke. But unlike you, we're not monsters. Here are my terms and they're non-negotiable. Humanity withdraws from all Federation space. We're taking our allies with us, the Skree, the Lumens, and the Myconids. We're heading beyond the galactic rim to build our own civilization. You leave us alone. Forever. That's acceptable, Vex said quickly, relief evident in his voice. I'm not finished. Brandon's voice turned ice cold. You need to understand something. We've spent 3 years learning how to kill each and every one of you. We know your biology, your weaknesses, your cultures. We've created weapons specifically designed to exterminate your species. And we're keeping them. What do you mean? The VRWNN representative asked. We're leaving sleeper agents throughout Federation space. Hidden weapons caches. Monitoring systems. Contingencies buried so deep you'll never find them all. They'll stay dormant as long as you honor this peace. But if any Federation species ever threatens humanity again, if you even think about coming after us, we won't fight back. We'll simply activate those contingencies and burn your entire civilization to ashes. Brandon leaned forward, his hands on the table. You wanted to eliminate us because you were afraid we'd become a threat. Congratulations. You created exactly what you feared. We are the galaxy's apex predators now. And this mercy we're showing you? It's a one-time offer. Cross us again and there won't be a third chance. Vex looked like he wanted to argue, but the fight had gone out of him. We accept your terms. The treaty was signed 3 days later. As the Federation representatives left, Brandon felt no satisfaction. Just exhaustion and the weight of what humanity had become. Captain Wesley Grant supervised the deactivation of his quantum charges, or at least that's what he told the Federation. In reality, only half were removed. The others remained in place, hidden and waiting. Let the Korthax wonder which ones were still active. Sir, all ships are ready for departure, Amber reported. The entire human fleet is assembled. 30,000 vessels carrying everyone who survived. Wesley looked at the massive armada through the viewport. Colony ships, military vessels, civilian transports. Humanity was leaving the space they'd fought so hard to claim. But they were leaving on their terms, not as refugees but as conquerors who chose mercy. Set course for the Galactic Rim. Let's go home. On Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Aaron Mitchell stood at a memorial that had been erected in downtown Houston. 12,000 names were carved into black stone, the colonists from Kepler 442b where it all began. The first victims of the Federation's betrayal. We didn't forget you, Aaron said quietly to the names. We made them pay for every single one of you. A young soldier approached him, couldn't have been more than 20 years old. Colonel, the transports are ready. Earth evacuation is almost complete. Aaron looked at the ruins of Houston one last time. This city had been his home. He'd fought for every block, every building. Now humanity was abandoning Earth, heading for unknown space. It's strange, Aaron said. We fought so hard to keep Earth. Now we're just leaving. We're not leaving in defeat though, sir. We're leaving because we choose to. Aaron smiled. The kid was right. That made all the difference. Dr. Lisa Warren sealed her viral research in encrypted databases that would travel with the human fleet. She'd created weapons that could destroy entire species. Part of her hoped they'd never be needed again. But another part, the part that had lost her sister and nieces, hoped the Federation would give humanity an excuse to use them. Dr. Warren? Ryan Foster stood in the doorway of her lab. The evacuation shuttles are boarding. We need to go. Lisa took one last look at her laboratory. This is where she transformed from a biologist into something darker. A creator of plagues. An architect of genocide. Ryan, do you think we'll ever be the people we were before? Before all this? Ryan was quiet for a moment. I don't know. Maybe we're better this way. Stronger. The Federation wanted to test us. They found out what humans become when you push them too far. Agent Troy Mason deleted the last of his infiltration programs from his Tokyo apartment. His viruses had caused 3 Federation species to fight each other. His misinformation campaigns had destroyed trust between former allies. He'd broken the Federation without ever firing a shot. Sir, we've received confirmation, his handler said over the radio. All your programs are backed up in the fleet systems. If we ever need them again. We'll be ready, Troy finished. The Federation thinks we're deactivating our weapons. They have no idea we're taking them all with us. Commander Nina Price walked through the corridors of her ship, heading for Earth one last time. She'd requested permission to visit Aquitas Prime's ruins before leaving Federation space. High Command had denied the request. Probably for the best. She didn't know what she'd feel seeing the destruction she'd caused. Commander, we're receiving a message, her communications officer called out. It's from a Thessian civilian. They're thanking you? Nina was confused. Put it through. A Thessian appeared on screen, young by their species standards. Commander Price, I know who you are. You destroyed our cultural center. You killed thousands of my people. But I wanted you to know, many of us didn't want this war. We protested the human extermination order. The elder species didn't listen. What you did was terrible, but we understand why. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For what my government did to your people. The transmission ended. Nina stood frozen, staring at the blank screen. It was the first apology any human had received from a Federation species. It didn't change anything. It didn't bring back the dead. But somehow it mattered. Ambassador Brandon Hayes remained behind as the last human in Federation space, maintaining a single embassy as a reminder. His final transmission to the human fleet was broadcast across all channels. People of Earth and the colonies, we survived. Against impossible odds, against a galaxy that wanted us dead, we survived. We became something dark in the process. We did things that will haunt us forever. But we're still here. Still human. still standing. The Federation learned what happens when you threaten humanity. Now we're leaving their space, but we're not running away. We're walking away. With our heads high. With our allies beside us. And with weapons ready in case they ever forget this lesson. The massive human armada jumped to quantum speed, heading for unexplored space beyond the galactic rim. Behind them, the Federation began the long process of rebuilding. Years later, Korthak's parents would tell their children stories about the humans, the species that refused to die, that turned the galaxy's betrayal into their greatest weapon. VRWNN historians would study the war as a cautionary tale about underestimating prey species. Thessians would build new monuments, and on each one would be carved a warning: never forget the cost of betrayal. In the darkness beyond the rim, humanity built a new civilization. Free from the Federation. Free from those who tried to destroy them. They established colonies on 1,000 worlds. They formed alliances based on mutual respect, not fear. But every human child learned their history. Learned about the betrayal. Learned about the war. Learned what humanity could become when pushed too far. And every ship that patrolled the border between human space and Federation territory carried one message for any alien vessel that approached. We remember. We forgive nothing. And we're watching. The galaxy had tested humanity and learned a terrible truth. Humans weren't the friendly explorers they pretended to be. Deep down, they were Earth's apex predators, patient, creative, and absolutely ruthless when threatened. The Federation wanted monsters. Humanity showed them what real monsters looked like. And then they showed mercy. What? The galaxy prayed there would never be a need for a second time. Because next time, humanity wouldn't stop until the Federation was nothing but dust and memories,